Welcome, everyone, to Smart Sex, Smart Love. We're talking about sex goes beyond the taboo, and talking about love goes beyond the honeymoon. My guest today is Julian Shaw, a New Zealand born, Australian raised writer, director, actor, model, and fetish content creator. He began his filmmaking career in his teens with the documentary Darling, which won an International Film Festival award, and his filmmaking career picked up speed through the years. He wrote and directed the Amazon Prime thriller Use Me, which earned global critical praise and more awards. The film became a trending title on Amazon Prime 5 years ago. In 2020, he launched a subscription site that reached the top 0.5% and shares tips and creators with creators on NSFW. For those of you that don't know, that's not safe for work, and then SFW, safe for work platforms. He now is developing a new feature about a middle-aged Hollywood character actor who reinvents himself as a sex worker. Julian also is the subject of a long-term documentary film in development by Stephen McCallum. Today, Julian will talk about blending mainstream film and adult content, how fetish and sexuality can be valid and valuable parts of a creative career, and why he refuses to be boxed into one category. Welcome, Julian.
Thank you, Joe. That's a nice introduction. I think you pretty much covered everything there. And I think people can probably guess what the subscription site was that I started in 2020.
So let's talk about it. What was it?
Sure. Well, it rhymes with lonely cans. I'm not sure if we
You
can
say it on here.
Okay, we can say, you can just change it on TikTok or whatever. No, OnlyFans, and it came off the back of that movie that I made, Use Me. The subject of that film was this real dominatrix named Sierra Lynch. And after I finished that film, man, I was broke. The pandemic hit. I was like $20,000 in debt. I didn't know what I was going to do. And my friend Sierra said, you need to try OnlyFans. I jumped on, and yeah, I was in the top 1% within a couple of months, and it was life-changing money. And it just made me reevaluate everything, to be honest with you. Not that I wanted to stop acting or directing, but I was just like, oh my goodness, this is a much bigger world than I had even realized.
Yes, right. So tell us. So what was the content, if you don't mind sharing, that people were enjoying that put you at the top 1%?
Yeah, well, look, I was a bit lucky. I mean, OnlyFans promoted me, and so it really was the safe for work aspect. Yeah, I was doing fitness stuff because, as well as filmmaking and acting, I've worked in gyms. I've been a personal trainer. I mean, I think I love to work out, so fitness has always been a big part of my life. So I was just documenting that, vlogging that. Okay, some thirst traps, shirtless, oiling up, muscle flexing, right? But no nudity, not putting pornography on the timeline. But just that alone was starting to get engagement. And that's what blew me away, because I thought OnlyFans was only hardcore pornography. Once I researched, you see there's people working out, cooking, knitting. I mean, it's all a little bit sexy, but there's, anchor content, and fitness was mine. And then, to be honest, Joe, I mean, it just goes from there. It's not even anything you put out. It's that people then start asking for stuff. People will slide into your DMs. And I think that's where a lot of the fetish requests started coming in once I had that hub there where people could contact me. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Because that's how I stumbled upon you. Without me explaining to the audience of how I stumbled upon you, I found you on those fetish sites, right? And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then we started talking, and I was telling you about my podcast. But so then you got the request to do the kinds of things that you do on those fetish clips. Do you mind sharing the kinds of things you do?
No, I mean, absolutely. Well, look, I mean, feet make the world go round. I mean, and I can tell you, I have a foot fetish myself. I mean, I'm personally heterosexual, so women's feet is my weakness. However, even though my audience is almost 100% male, it's really identical. I don't think it matters too much, the gender, the sex. It's the core concept of a power exchange, of someone having a lot of power and the other person having minimal or zero power. So, feet are a great example of that, foot domination, verbal domination. And then you experiment with different genres. I made one with my girlfriend where she filmed me, stepping on a pie, sitting on a cake, smushing food. That blew up. That did amazingly well. And then, to be honest, I got this custom request for a farting custom. And I thought, okay, well, I'll do that. I'll put that out there, put it on Clips for Sale, and it immediately became the highest selling clip ever. And
a farting fetish.
Yeah,
became the highest. Wow.
yeah, absolutely. And I looked into the data, and you might find this interesting. In terms of search, right? We put in our little search terms on Pornhub or whatever it is,
Hmm.
MILF, feet, giant, boobs, whatever it is, Latina. Apparently, farts was 69th before the pandemic. And then by about 2021, 2022, it was now the second highest search term. So farts have had a great meteoric rise in recent years. I don't know why that is. Maybe you could extrapolate, but it's interesting.
No, I don't know. What was the first?
It's a great question. It may have been
Feet.
elderly.
I would think feet. Oh, what?
I think feet or elderly. Grandma or something like that. Yeah,
Okay.
which is interesting too. People worry about aging out and stuff like that in the fetish world, and yet grandma, grandpa, gilf. These are evergreen search terms. I've learned looking at the data. Yeah,
Yeah. So you've learned a lot as you've gotten into all this, right?
absolutely. Because this isn't about what I want to make or what my interests are. It's what does the audience want? What are they prepared to pay for?
Right.
And yeah, I think still that personal connection is so important. Like the biggest money makers are customs. I had a guy pay $800 for me to just hump a pillow, right?
Hmm.
Fully clothed, no
Hmm.
nudity. But that was worth it to him, and he was thrilled with it.
Hmm.
Didn't even put my face in it. And yet, but this was his particular fantasy.
Hmm.
And I think even in a world of AI slop, and we're going to be able to punch things in and generate virtual content immediately. I still think there's something about a real human being taking the time to make something for you. And I'm not sure that's going away anytime soon.
I agree with you. I really do. And when those people that don't know, when you say custom, it means that the person has reached out to you and said, "Hey, I'd like to watch you do this, or could you talk to me in a certain way?" And then they can pleasure themselves while they're watching you on this video that you've pre-recorded.
Exactly that. And this is the beauty of fetishes, as opposed to what we call vanilla content. And I would describe vanilla as sexual intercourse or genitalia, right? Meaning more common, what
Yes.
most people might orient to. I define vanilla as one category and kink as a smaller, discrete category. And with the kink, I don't take my clothes off. I mean, this is non-nude fetish content. Like I say, it could be
Yes.
sitting on a pie, threatening to put a pie into someone's face, pretending to be a giant who wears spandex, threatening to burp in someone's face. So it's really about the psychology, not any graphic nudity. And I think that's the big difference. Because when people think of porn, right, they think of nudity, they think of sexual intercourse. There's this whole world that has nothing to do with that. And
Right.
I'm more comfortable there too.
Oh, I was going to ask you because when people think of sex, they do. They think of nudity, they think of intercourse, or blowjobs, all the vanilla stuff, the traditional stuff. But you are engaging in sex for people that for whom it is sex for them to watch you do all of that. And so, are you more comfortable making the fetish porn than the other?
I really am, Joe. And we've chatted about this once or twice off camera. I have these two OnlyFans sites. There's Julian, which is me, and then I have Sebastian Cash. He's my alter ego. I kind of don't love the Julian one, because it is me, and it's my name, and it's it's my humanity, and in a way, people they're buying that as a product, and I'm a little bit more uncomfortable with that because it's really a
Mm.
parasocial relationship and a kind of intimacy that people want. I think more even than sexual content, which of course people are always going to want, but I actually think they want that connection. The fetish stuff is a little bit cleaner and more transactional to me,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
actually think the boundaries are much clearer. So in a sense, with the fetish stuff, right? It could be okay. I'm going to give you $200. It's a 3-minute video. You're going to put your feet up to the camera and you're going to threaten to smush me with your feet. That's it. It's crystal clear. With the vanilla stuff, I just often feel people are trying to orient it towards meeting up or this becoming some kind of relationship. So the
Oh,
boundaries just aren't there. And maybe you've observed that with kink, people have a good, clear sense of boundaries, which is great.
yeah, I really, really love everything you're saying. And one of the things because we've become friends, and I'm so glad to. And I've learned I've been able to ask you more questions. Like, so you have this that, well, the Julian stuff, and you want to be a director, and you've acted, and we'll talk about that too. And then you're doing this fetish stuff, and we've talked about maybe this is my generation. I have no judgment about it at all, obviously, but always tell you how much I worry that the fetish stuff could block you from any kind of skyrocketing in an actor way. Can you talk about that? What you've come to terms with that?
No, for sure. I mean, and look, you're echoing my own concerns when I started. Is this the end of the Hollywood dream, as it were?
Mm,
I think for me, though, there is this sense that Hollywood has changed. I mean, there has been a decline in the industry. That's factual. That's not an opinion. I see people far more famous and experienced than me not working. And so then I think, okay, yes, there's a risk doing this fetish stuff, for sure. There's a risk that casting directors, producers might see that and think, well, we don't want a guy like that in our movie or TV show. But there's a huge risk in not taking advantage of this opportunity while it's here. It's
mm,
this moment in time with this online technology. There's this money to be made, and I love doing the work. I enjoy it. It's creative. I have fetishes myself. It's validating for me, right? It's actually cathartic for me to make this content. So it's a risk either way. And and in no way boasting, because believe me, being a filmmaker and an actor, I have struggled, for decades, right, with income.
yeah,
But I look at
yeah.
the money I've made just in the last few years, and that is, pretty much what I would have got if I had booked a network TV show,
Hmm.
particularly after my agent and manager fees and the taxes. Honestly, I mean, I've
Mm,
probably done better doing this online fetish stuff and the OnlyFans stuff. So, there's a trade off, and I'm being remunerated for it. I'm being
hmm.
paid well for it. And the only other thing I would say is that I made a conscious choice to own it. And that's part of me being here talking about it. You're the first podcast I've done where I've opened up about this. I keep it very
Mm,
separate.
hmm.
But I trust you. You're a friend. I love you. And so this is kind of like owning it, you know,
Yeah, I
and
love it.
actually, thank you. And actually wanting to do both. And I believe it's possible. I will still make films. I will still do mainstream acting, and I will have this aspect to my life too. And I think it is
And I believe
possible.
that. I do believe it. When I was in a school for a little bit, teaching as a professor, and it was a sex education school and sex, a training school. And some of the therapists were doing sex work on the side, and I had to come to terms with the fact because I'm not from that generation, right? Well, first of all, ethically, licensing, there's a lot of situations that could go wrong for them. But I really don't have a problem with that. At the first time I actually heard about it was a guy I know in West Hollywood who's a very good therapist, but at night he does gay porn. And
Oh,
he
wow.
just tells his clients, if you want to see me, great, but I just want you to know you may end up seeing me that way. And, if that bothers you, I'm not the right therapist for you. Bravo to him. He is a sex therapist, an educator, and so are you. I feel like you're doing it just in a different way.
Oh, I really appreciate that coming from you. And look, I think there is a sea change where it is becoming less stigmatized. Even if you look at the Academy Awards this year, Anora won Best Picture. That's a story about a sex worker. There were many actual sex
Oh,
workers in the cast. Yeah, great film if you haven't seen it. And I just remember that, I believe Mikey Madsen won Best Actress, right? So this is as mainstream as you can get, right? You win the Oscar. And she sort of was saying, this is for all the sex workers out there. And it got a standing ovation. And I thought, well, that's pretty amazing.
wow.
That's
Yes.
pretty amazing. And even if it's Hollywood, maybe thinking this is the woke thing to do, or, oh, there's some virtue signaling, you could be cynical about it. I don't really care. Either way, that's a massive difference to even 5 or 10 years ago.
Oh my God, yes. No, I agree with you. And even in my field, right, we used to believe in the 80s and 90s, I remember being trained this way, that sex workers and what you were doing is because you were traumatized as a child and you were sexually abused in some way. And sometimes that's the case, but it's not. They finally did research, good research in the 90s to say, no, no, no. People just know they're attractive. They know what they like. They know what kind of people, what kind of money they can make. And that's it. It's not about trauma.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I've had some traumatic events in my life, around my parents' divorce and things like that. And, I've experienced depression and anxiety in the past, but I don't have, some sexual abuse in my history or something like that. And I agree. I think that's such a cliche, and people almost think, well, that's the only reason you would do
Right.
it. And as you say, I mean, the numbers just don't bear it out. And I just saw a staggering statistic actually, which is, I believe it's something like 1 in 10 American women in their 20s have an OnlyFans account, or they have had it at some point.
Mm.
So clearly, you know, these are these are numbers showing it's more mainstream in the way we engage with this content, purchase it, has really changed. And the people doing it, I mean, they're not all victims, you know, and it's an outmoded way of thinking. I do think that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so old school. So let's talk about the fact that you're straight, and a lot of the guys that are buying your content obviously are gay, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I
Right.
mean, look,
And so,
it's go ahead. Go ahead.
go. No, no, go.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, women don't pay. Women don't need to. I mean,
Right.
I'm not saying there aren't some,
Yes.
but let me be anecdotal here. I mean, over the years on OnlyFans, I've had thousands of subscribers, right? Out of those thousands, maybe 20 of them have been females, right? So that's kind of the numbers you're dealing with. And I would say 18 out of the 20 didn't try to get any sexual content. They would just immediately message me and say, "Hey, I'm trying to make more money on OnlyFans. I see you're doing well. Can you give me tips?" I had one woman, want to buy, a jerk off video once ever in 5 years. And then I have one other female subscriber who really just wanted me to check in with her and ask how her day was, and
Mm-hmm.
never alluded to
Mm.
sexual content. So
Mm.
anyway, that's anecdotal. That's my experience. However, it's a pretty big sample size when you think I've had about 5,000 people and there's been 20 women. So it's simply supply and demand. I could say, oh, I want to make content for women. It's just not going to happen, Joe.
Yeah.
It's,
No. So what do you say to some people say, and I think you've told me you may have heard this, you're exploiting gay men. You're a straight guy and you're exploiting gay men and they're paying you for their money. What do you say to that?
Well, firstly, I mean, if you feel that way, you're entitled to your opinion. So I don't feel a need to correct them.
Let
But
me just be clear. I don't feel that way, just so you
yeah,
know, but people
no,
do.
no, sure. Well, firstly, that's fine, and I'm not going to shame
Yeah.
someone for an opinion.
Yeah.
So I'd probably say thank you for sharing that, and okay. But what I would say is that I didn't invent this. This is happening because people asked me for it, and specifically, there are men who identify as gay who have I don't know if you want to call it a fetish, a kink, an orientation, whatever word you want to use, a preference for a heterosexual man. That is their preference. They want content about that, exploring that. They want to interact with a man who identifies as straight. So if someone
Yes.
is trying to shame me and saying I'm being exploitative, I would say, okay, here's just something for you to consider. Is it possible that you're actually shaming this guy and his fetish? That you're actually saying this poor gay guy is being exploited by this straight guy, as though he's some hapless victim in this, not a guy who knows what he likes and what turns him on and is buying content that makes him happy and fulfilled.
Mm. Mm.
Consider that. Because, again, without bragging, my customers are very satisfied with what I do. And if me being straight is a part of that, who am I to judge? I mean, frankly, I kind of have the same fetish. I am turned on by an unattainable woman. The idea of an
Mm-hmm.
alpha female who
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't even look at me but would take my money. Well, that's a similar concept in a way because it's the idea of forbidden fruit.
Yes.
So, anything I'm doing to these guys, frankly, I've done myself. I have paid money to have a dominatrix session. I have done
Mm.
financial domination where I'm the sub. I have sent money to women. I have bought custom clips from women that are degrading, and there's a power dynamic. To me, it is identical to what I do for these guys. So I've really never done anything to a guy that I haven't done myself as the customer. So if I'm
Mm-hmm.
exploiting them, then I guess I'm being exploited too. And frankly, Joe, I do not feel exploited exploring my sexuality and having fun with it. I do not feel exploited at all.
I'm so glad to see you say this, and I just think you're paving a way, and you're one of the pioneers in this, especially now that you're even being so honest and disclosing, personally for you, that people don't do. People don't try to navigate the kink stuff and then the Hollywood stuff. They either pick one lane or the other, and I think you're pioneering something here.
Man, I really appreciate that, and I think that means a lot because I sort of made the decision that okay, I could come out about this, as it were, and be open about it, and I'm going to offend some people, and some people aren't going to want to work with me. However, there's also a risk in just trying to be the clean cut boy next door archetype and try to make it in Hollywood in this wholesome archetype.
Which
I
you
mean,
could do easily, easily.
well, but there are thousands of guys that look like me and are talented actors, and I've met them, and I'm realistic about that. And that's not to denigrate my abilities, as an
No,
actor or anything like that. I'm not being, self deprecating. I'm just being honest with you. I think there's a huge risk in not standing out and not cutting through. And if this and owning this sets me apart a bit, then great.
I think it does. I totally do. Now let's talk about the Hollywood part. You're making. We'll talk about Use Me. What is it? And if people want to get it, like, what would they be watching?
Yeah, for sure. So Use Me is my first movie. I moved to the States to make it from Australia. And it is in the style of a documentary. And it's me documenting the life of this famous humiliatrix, Sierra Lynch, who is a financial dom. And in the process of making the documentary, my character falls in love with her and opens up this whole secret world. This whole kind of behind the scenes controversy of what she's actually doing with her clients. So it's a kinky, sexy psychological thriller. I think you can watch it free on Amazon, but if you just Google it, you'll find it. And yeah, no, look, I'm really proud of the film. And then it's led to more work and another documentary that's a spin-off from that. And now I'm actually the subject of a documentary. And that's been fascinating. A good friend of mine who's a filmmaker has been documenting myself and my now ex-girlfriend as we worked together creating this fetish character. And I started doing OnlyFans. And I think the idea was to document what impact this has on a relationship.
Oh,
Unfortunately, we broke up this year. And I guess, you could say the work was part of that. It was challenging for both of us. And so the film
why?
will
Can I ask
explore that.
why?
I think that, well, I wouldn't want to speak for her, but I do think that it's tough seeing your partner being the object of desire. And I
Hmm.
think simulating these parasocial relationships, I think that's really challenging. And we're all human.
Mm.
And I feel for her and I understand that. We made the decision she'd help me grow it, right? And sort of help with scheduling content. She'd shoot some content for me. But it did just start to take a toll on us both. And
Hmm.
no amount of money really fixed that. I also think we have irreconcilable differences, and there's more to it than that. But the documentary, when it comes out, will really show the reality of being a content creator on OnlyFans
Mm.
and being a fetish content creator, and how it can affect your home life. So yeah, there's a dark side to it as well.
Is this different than the Hollywood middle-aged Hollywood character actor that you're
Yes,
developing?
yes, yeah. So I'm kind
Okay.
of doing a fetish trilogy. Use Me's the first one, and then there's this other one about my friend Joe who tries to become a fetish model online. Doesn't go very
Okay.
well. And then this one about me is kind of the third film. So I love fetish. I'm fascinated by it, and this is my era of making films about it. So yeah, hopefully people enjoy those all when they see them.
I'm sure they do. I mean, obviously you're making good money off of it, and the numbers are pretty good.
Yeah, and look, one feeds into the other, Joe. I mean, to be honest, I'm able to put all this time into making documentaries because I've got this money coming in. So it
Yeah.
feeds the art, and that's another reason I have no regrets. I'm not just trying to buy a Lamborghini or something. I'm fueling my art and paying for my art, and that makes me feel deeply satisfied doing that.
Right. You're not just doing this for the money. You're doing this because you're in it. Your passion. It's personal. It's a service also for people.
Yeah, and look, I'll go one step further because I do think people they either think I'm being exploitative or it's sort of cold-hearted. It's just for the money. The money's great. We all need money. So that's obvious. There is more to it than that. And I would say that actually owning being a fetish content creator and owning my own fetishes has been amazing for my mental health. And helping other people embrace their fetish and let go of shame
Hmm.
has been just incredible because I was ashamed when I was a teenager and I had these kinks and I loved femdom and feet, all the stuff that turns out is quite common, by the way. But to me, I felt like a freak and an outcast and like I was the only one on earth. Once I
Hmm.
found this fetish content online, I went, oh my God, there's a community of people like me.
Hmm.
And yeah, look, I've had people write to me and say, um, that, my fetish content and my suggestion that they shouldn't be ashamed and should just own it and enjoy their fetish. It's made them feel a lot better. It's actually relieved anxiety for them. and that they're in a
Mhm.
better place now emotionally. And that's just cool, man. You know, that's the best thing that's come out of this.
You actually sound almost word for word like a sex therapist, sex educator. You're just doing it differently. The vehicle in which you're using is just different than what we do. But it's all the same thing we want: is to get rid of people's shame, get people honest, people open, people integrating this into themselves, like I had to do with my own kinks and fetishes, which why I became a sex therapist. So we're just doing it differently, but I feel like we're like brothers in some way.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. You know, and do you talk about your kinks and fetishes on the show? I need to listen to a few more episodes, but
I do not. I
yeah,
always, when I do my presentations, I say, I mean, I'm very, very, very open about it, but publicly, I just keep it because I think that if someone wants to work with me, it might be distracting to them. I might tell somebody in a client therapist relationship if it will be helpful for them to know about it. But I usually just keep it in general. But I tell my clients, I want you to be like me. If I was at a bus stop waiting for a bus and I decided that I wanted to tell some guy next to me what I get off on, I could do it like that. It would be nothing to me because I'm not ashamed and I could give two shits about what he thinks about it.
great. Yeah, no, I totally understand that, and I think it's wise to keep it compartmentalized. And you know, we live in a world now too. It's so sort of saturated, especially with media. Um, I've been similar in that even though I'm open about it, I keep it in each lane. You know, I have this fetish character. I have a whole YouTube channel about rugby. You know, I'm going to be streaming tonight the All Black Springboks game. People who follow that have no idea I do any of that stuff.
Yeah,
So it's not even that you're trying to keep it a secret. It's just different audiences want different things, and you don't need to cross it over and
right.
blur the
I don't have a
lines.
problem with crossing it over. I kind of wish that I could do that because it is more me. I am more like I love how you are in this interview right now. You're talking about it. You've crossed over. You're being open and honest. I just think as a therapist, sometimes it's a fine line. You
I
know.
get that. I get that. No,
Hmm.
that's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
It's a great question. I see myself really having a creative sanctuary, owning a home, being able to be a rugby YouTuber, making fetish content, directing films, you know, writing novels, writing screenplays, auditioning, really doing what I'm doing now, but just, I suppose, more success, more money. But what I'm looking for isn't financial. It's just that freedom to create art and
Yeah.
make people happy, you know. And I kind of view it the same, you know, whether it's a movie I've made people like, a movie I've acted in that people like, or a great fetish clip that people think is just a banger. They honestly all give me a similar feeling of satisfaction. I just love to create. So, man, if I just have the financial freedom to keep creating, I'll be the happiest guy on earth. Really, that's all I'm
I can
looking
tell
for.
that. I can tell that. I want to say something that I wanted to say earlier, and it's always kind of get rubs me wrong. You know, people would say, you know, you're exploiting, or people are exploiting you, and you're only doing it for the money, and that's not true. But let's say that was. How is that any different than a Hollywood actor? They love the acting, but they're doing it for the money, and we're exploiting them. We're looking at them and objectifying them in many ways. But when it becomes sexual, people's bias kick right in.
Oh no, absolutely. And look, I'm not going to name drop here, but you know, I've met a few people in Hollywood, people you'd know, and I've heard conversations and taking a job purely on the paycheck. And by the way, more power to you. I mean, I know a guy who took something that he hated the script, but the price was right. Great. Money makes
Yes,
the world go round. And
yes,
I also view it this way, Joe. It's like, okay, so he did this film that he thought was shitty, big payday. Maybe now he can go and do his passion project, you know?
hmm,
So sometimes you just have to stack the bucks, and that can allow you to do the really meaningful work. But look, unfortunately, there isn't always a correlation. You know, I mean, I don't love advertising, but the most money I've ever made is acting in TV commercials. That's not artistically fulfilling. That to me,
hmm, hmm.
that is less artistically fulfilling than making a good fetish video. Um,
Yes.
but look, Joe, I mean, pick any job. I mean, you know, I just went and got some fillings done for my teeth. I mean, was the dentist having the best day of their life and just loving every second? No, they were grinding through it and they were thinking about the money they were going to get from my insurance company.
Right.
We are all doing that in every profession. So, you
Right.
know, just doing it for the money, who isn't? I mean, look, I feel no need to be defensive about that. I would say that my
Good.
job satisfaction, though, is higher than a lot of people I know. So
Yeah. Good.
it's not just about the money. I enjoy the work, you know.
What final messages would you leave for the audience? What that are listening? What do you want them to hear? that you haven't said so far?
I think the message I just want to convey and reiterate is be true to yourself. There is such power in that. And it's kind of the scariest thing, but so much good can come from it. I even look at the fact we're doing this podcast, and I really enjoy your work and it's an honor to be on your show. And you're having me on the show because I decided to be open about this stuff. The fact that one of my favorite filmmakers, my friend Steven, is documenting me. Well, that's because I started being open. Like beautiful things have happened because of that.
Mm.
So I think there's a lot of upside. And what you're going to do is maybe lose a few people, but they're not really your people. And it's actually going to bring people into your life that are your real tribe and your true community. And that has been my experience. So just take a fearless step forward and own who you are. And that's the pathway to happiness. I do believe that.
That's such a beautiful thing to say. I completely agree. Where can people find you on the internet?
Sure. I mean, I think Instagram I'm on a lot. It's Julian Shaw Official. I do have a TikTok. It's the same, Julian Shaw Official. In fact, I think my YouTube is also Julian Shaw Official. So, just give a Google. But Instagram is kind of just how to stay in touch with all my acting projects, stuff like that. You can link to my naughty sites as well through there. But yeah, just Google's your best friend. Then you can check out all the different things I do and see if you like any of it.
All right, good. And we will definitely put it in the notes when people are on when they can find our podcast, which is everywhere. We put this everywhere.
Awesome.
So, Julian, thank you so much. Such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Joe. So glad we could finally do this and hope we do it again someday.
I know, me too. So thank you so much for being willing to do it. You can hear more about my other podcast at smartsexsmartlove.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. My handle there is at Dr. Joe Kort, DrJoeKort. And also, if you go to joekort.com, you can go to my website and follow all the other things I do, the books I've written, and the team of therapists that we have here in Royal Oak at the Center for Relationship Health. So thanks for listening. And until next time, stay safe and stay healthy.